So let's watch the first lightning talk.
Hello everyone, my name is Suyheang. I am the Executive Director of Peacemakers, which is a local organization that works on intersections of gender and peace building here in Cambodia since 2003. So it's such a privilege to be part of these important conversations on the future of collections and their role in shaping a more peaceful world. So today I would like to take this chance to share with you some of our work and how heritage collections, specifically those that rooted in difficult histories, can become a powerful tool for conflict transformation and peace building as well. So would just give me a few seconds to share with you some of my slides here. So today I would like to share with you the role of collections in peace building and conflict transformations here in Cambodia through the work of WPM. So at WPM, one of our program is on peace and conflict transformations, and we focus on the intersections of resilience, inclusions, and violence preventions. Our mission is to support the empowerment of women and youth, transform conflict, and prevent violence by providing creative tools and space for dialogue, deeper understanding, and strategic interventions on the issues of gender and peace building. So one of the most transformative tools we use in this work is heritage collections as well. So this work, as you know, directly contributing to the Sustainable Development Goal 16, which call for the promotions of peaceful and inclusive societies, access to justice for all, and building of effective, accountable institutions. Heritage collections, when used intentionally, can definitely support all these aims as well. In Cambodia, our histories is marked by deep trauma, particularly the legacy of the genocidal Khmer Rouge regime. But within that painful past, it also lies a potential for healing and transformations as well. We believe that collections, whether in a form of museums, genocide memorials, or community centers, can help us deal with the past violence, engage in transformational dialogue, and build bridges across generations as well. For instance, in one of our work recently on Women, Peace and Security's activator program, we engage with young generation, particularly in organizing an exposure visit to the genocide memorial site and Cambodia Peace Gallery, for example, in Battambang province, where the young participant learn for the first time about the past in that community, dialogue with the survivors, and reflect upon their role and commitment to never again and peace building as well. So these collection sites are not just a repository of artifacts, but it also a space for reflections, learning, and connections as well. So during these visits, we facilitated an intergenerational dialogue between the youth and the survivor of the Khmer Rouge region. And this conversation had helped to bridge generational trauma and foster empathy and acknowledgement as well. So most importantly, it also helped the youth to revisit their roles and commitment to peace and security. This heritage collection later then become a living space for transformation. In another initiative of us in WPM entitled The History of the Future, we brought together 12 young Cambodians from diverse ethnic backgrounds to explore how the historical narrative shape identity, belonging, and inter-ethnic relation today. So we use our homegrown methodologies and conflict transformation approach called facilitative listening design, FLD, where participants conducted field research in ethnic minority communities, listen to unheard voices in that community, and engage with community memories, many of which are preserved in local collections and oral history. And these participants didn't stop there at just only listening. They also co-created the analysis and also producing short videos with that community, using storytelling and therapeutic arts to process post-generational trauma and reclaim narratives as well. These initiatives show us that collections are not just about the past. They are also tools for shaping the future, especially when young generation are empowered to engage with them critically and creatively. So, what are the key takeaways from this example that we can learn that heritage collection can also become a powerful tools in peace building and conflict transformations? I think firstly would be it helped to preserve memory because it's also ensuring the lessons of the past are not forgotten. And secondly, I think that they also can create safe space for dialogue and reflections among those involved, where conversations, which is both sensitive and also difficult sometimes as well, can happen with care. And last but not least, they can amplify voices of those marginalized groups by reminding us that peace is not just an ideal, but also a practice rooted in shared stories. And specifically, because of that, it's also inspire actions as well. So then it can help us to collectively ensure never again and transform conflict that either happening now or in the future. So in this way, collection become not only a cultural assets, but also a civic engagement tool that's supporting dialogue, inclusions, and strengthenings of institutions from the ground up as well. So as we're looking forward to 2030 and beyond, I think it's really important for all of us to reimagine heritage collection, not just an archive of histories, but also as a local resources for peace as well. I hope we can continue to invest in inclusive curations and community-led programming, and particularly in transforming memories and into a movement for change. So thank you so much for listening and for especially believing in the power of collection to be a more peaceful world.
Big thanks to Yang for the inspiring presentation, and we look forward to continue the conversation with her in the Q&A session. So the next lightning talk is from Inga Surgunte, whose presentation will examine how cultural heritage and collections-based institutions contribute to peace building before, during, and after conflict. So Inga will share some compelling examples showing how museums and cultural centers adapt in times of crisis to foster resilience, social cohesion, and community memory. From relocated institutions in war-torn regions to collaborative initiatives, this talk encourages us to rethink the boundaries of peace and conflict and highlights the enduring role of heritage in healing and rebuilding. Again, if you have questions or reactions, please share them in the Q&A panel. Let's watch the presentation.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Greetings from Riga, Latvia. My name is Inga Surgunte, and it is my honor to share perspectives of the Latvian Museum Association on heritage, collection-based institutions, and peace building. Heritage plays a vital role before, during, and after conflicts, and this was emphasized in UNESCO's thematic program Heritage for Peace, issued to mark the 70th anniversary of the Hague Convention. Since 2022, heritage professionals in countries neighboring Ukraine have been acutely reminded of this role. In 2025, we joined forces to organize the conference Localizing SDGs through Museums and Libraries, which focused on the fundamental prerequisite of sustainable development, peace. The event brought together professionals from Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Moldova, Georgia, and Ukraine. And please allow me to share 3 inspiring case studies presented at this conference. In terms of peacekeeping and conflict prevention, the Latvian Museum Association's project, We for Our Community, trained GLAM sector specialists to work more effectively with local communities. An open call for initiatives followed, resulting in 3 remarkable projects. The Rodko Museum in Daugavpils established a youth club in a city where over half the population is Russian-speaking, facing challenges of language barriers and shared history. Valmiera Integrated Libraries Project Neighbor Yard History engaged Seda village, home to more than 60 nationalities. Librarians interviewed locals to create a vocabulary of unique toponyms that emerged in this place through the blending of different languages. Meanwhile, ArtStation Dubulti and Jurmala Library developed Photo Story for My Community, a photography project with socially disadvantaged groups that explore their shared stories and the community's common heritage. And we believe that these projects provide opportunities for social cohesion, community engagement, dialogue between different groups of society. When it comes to the role of heritage during conflicts, of course, we have to look at the exemplary and heroic work of Ukrainian museums. This is the Luhansk Regional Museum of Local Lore that was relocated 3 times. In its second address in Lviv, the museum had to rebuild its collection completely as it was lost. They worked with local communities, including war veterans, providing opportunity to safeguard the historical memory of the war, to safeguard their heritage and identity that is being deliberately destroyed. The museum became a place for commemoration, which is an important step towards transitional justice. It is also a space for healing and mourning for local people. Museums of Georgia offer powerful examples in supporting post-conflict recovery. The Ivanishvili House Museum was originally located in the area historically known as Samachablo, which, since 2008, has been under the control of the de facto authorities of South Ossetia. Museum workers managed to save part of the collections and relocate them to Tbilisi, and now the museum is re-established in Siruvani, home to forcibly displaced Georgians. Displacement leaves them facing disconnection, alienation, loss, and a deep sense of confusion. The museum has become a place for this community to come together, to heal, to remember. On a more critical note, I would like to say that although we can provide examples of how museums and libraries and archives and galleries are working in the context of pre-conflict, during conflict, and post-conflict situations, it is also related with very complicated and comfortable questions, such as, did we fail at peacekeeping and conflict prevention since we still see wars emerging in front of our eyes? Which conflicts are ours? When should we engage? When are conflicts really over? What about conflicts that persist within communities and in people's minds? And isn't it that we are constantly operating across all 3 phases of conflict and trying to deliver work that all 3 of them require? With these challenges in mind and on our working desks, I would like to recall the beautiful preamble of the UNESCO Constitution saying, "Since wars begin in the minds of women and men, it is in the minds of women and men that the defenses of peace must be constructed." And we all know that collection-based institutions are one of the best workers on this construction field. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Inga, for that presentation. Looking forward to the conversation afterwards. Now we move on to the presentation by Sultan Ali, which explores the peace-building potential of archives in protected territorial disputes. In regions where history is deeply politicized and memory institutions face constant threats, we will hear how small community-run archives can foster dialogue, preserve indigenous knowledge, and offer creative tools for reconciliation. By documenting shared experience and existential challenges, such as climate change, These grassroots initiatives show how archives can become bridges that connect communities and cultivate common ground in the pursuit of peace. So let's watch Sultan's presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Sultan and I'm from Pakistan. I'm a heritage practitioner and I'm going to talk about the potential role of archives in peace building in the disputed region of Kashmir between India and Pakistan. For the last many years, I have been focusing on Gilgit-Baltistan, an integral part of the region administered by Pakistan. With armed conflicts raging across nearly every continent, populist regimes rising, post-truth era glorifying selective histories, and memory institutions under threat, archives today have become increasingly vital as custodians of knowledge. They're essential for fostering inclusive histories and peace building. Since the partition of South Asia in 1947, Kashmir has been a long-standing territorial dispute. It has led to more than 3 wars and fueled an indigenous armed resistance in the Indian-controlled Kashmir. Like in any modern dispute, the states have used all available means, including archives, to construct desired political and historical narratives to legitimize their claims. But archives and collective memories have seldom been used for reconciliation and peace building. Most archives, public or private, are primarily based in urban centers of India and Pakistan. Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan have largely been excluded due to logistical and political challenges. And there are no memory institutions or archives in Gilgit-Baltistan. So to fill that gap, I founded Mountain Heritage Archives, which archives oral histories, indigenous knowledge, and people's collections. While the project originally aimed to expand beyond Gilgit-Baltistan and even beyond Kashmir, however, given the current volatile situation, it seems unlikely. In an ideal situation, archives as memory institutions should be playing a pivotal role in shaping or challenging perceptions of the past, which obviously is not happening at the moment. Any memory institution in the disputed territory being administered either by India or Pakistan will have to navigate these wider challenges. So how would an archive of any kind possibly contribute to peace building? By helping to find some common ground through mutually shared challenges in the region might be the first step. In the given context, what are the mutually shared and pressing and urgent issues that could become the common ground? There could be a long list of issues of mutual interest whose archives and knowledge could bring people together. Here I would just focus on climate change and other natural disasters and how archives of indigenous knowledge can bring people together on both sides of the dispute and help them fight such a common foe. For centuries, people in the region have managed to live in harmony with nature, developing unique knowledge systems that have been transmitted orally through generations in languages that are now largely vulnerable. The indigenous knowledge, for the most part, is not documented. Its archives can help build communities resilient in the face of natural disaster. The small archive I founded aspires to do that in the future, and people would find the common ground that I am referring to at the moment, at least online, on digital platforms, on social media, by interacting with these archives. Similarly, other natural disasters like the massive earthquake of 2005 and floods of 2010 and 22 affected millions of people in the region, but they have not been documented from the people's perspective. Or what indigenous knowledge did they use to fight them or rebuild their lives? Their stories have not been archived. I also believe a shared tragedy has the power to help us transcend imposed and manufactured religious and political biases and evoke a deeper sense of empathy for each other. Other than deepening empathy, an accessible archive of people's stories who have been fighting these disasters with limited resources can significantly aid to the existing knowledge on how humans could manage them by combining traditional and modern knowledge and tools. Community-run archives like the Mountain Heritage Archives across the region could build partnerships and networks to help find common ground, share knowledge, build empathy, and contribute to peace building. In the words of David Lamott, peacemaking is not an effort to eliminate conflict. Peacemaking is the art of approaching conflict in ways that are constructive rather than destructive. So inclusive and accessible archives and memory institutions can foster discourses and dialogue that may potentially lead to peace, or at the very least, bring people together to discuss issues that are otherwise difficult to confront or issues of mutual interest. I would conclude by saying that an archive single-handedly may not build or guarantee peace, but a robust archive could contribute to approaching conflicts constructively.
Thanks to Sultan, who will be joining us shortly for the Q&A live. And next we'll hear another lightning talk by Ryan, which approaches collections through the lens of legal studies and highlights how heritage collections can be powerful catalysts for human rights, peace, and sustainable development. In the face of global challenges, from climate change to inequality and conflict, the presentation explores how museums, libraries, archives, and other types of collections-based organization offer space for reflection, education, and collective memory. By engaging with the past to inform the present and shape the future, these institutions can help advance the SDGs and foster inclusive, solution-oriented partnerships that can transform collections into active agents of change. Let's watch the lightning talk.
Good day. As an educator, formator, and advocate, a question I often ask is, how do you see yourself 5 to 10 years from now? This prompts people to take a look at what they have achieved so far and what they aim to do in the future. But today I ask, how do you see the world 5 to 10 years from now? This is a question that underpins global efforts towards peace, human rights, justice, and sustainable development. It is the same question posed at major international gatherings, such as the SDG summits, where world leaders reflect on our shared progress, or the lack thereof. Through the Sustainable Development Goals, we have set goalposts not just as nations, but as a global community on the kind of world we want to live in, and later on, leave behind. Among these goals is SDG 16, which is about promoting peaceful and inclusive societies and access to justice for all. The SDG report shows the following data in relation to SDG 16. The 2023 SDG Summit has delivered a sobering message. Despite notable progress, the pace of global action remains woefully inadequate to secure our well-being and that of our planet. We are simply not moving fast enough. Systemic challenges such as inequality, the climate crisis, conflict, and social fragmentation have considerably slowed down the attainment of the SDGs. In this complex and fragile global landscape, peace emerges not just as an aspirational ideal, but as an essential foundation for sustainable development. Without peace, human rights, justice, education, and equitable opportunities, the SDGs will remain elusive. It is in this context that heritage collections in museums, libraries, and archives can play a pivotal role. Through heritage collections, we can reflect on the past, assess the present, and envision the future all at the same time. Heritage collections allow us to view history, cultural identity, existing conditions, and even our own ideals. For instance, through artworks, artists channel their ideas and hope that others will see or feel them too. These can be useful tools for peace and human rights work. Artwork showing unity of communities or times of peace after crises in history can inspire the idea of peace building. Meanwhile, museums have varied collections. These serve not only heritage purposes, but can awaken the minds of people as to how sustainability developed over time. They also serve to memorialize gross violations of human rights so we do not forget. Finally, libraries contain limitless information and references. Specific to human rights, the information may be used as secondary evidence in investigations and cases in some forums. These collections also serve to teach, so we avoid revisionism. Similar to museums, libraries serve as hubs for memorialization and education, so we do not repeat the horrors of the past, and so we can chart a better way forward, fully informed of our collective history. The only challenge is to get more people to actually visit them and read the books and check out the archives. Heritage collections need to be more accessible to the public. Two things come to mind. In this digital age, libraries, museums, and archives and similar institutions need to step up in taking space in the digital world in order to reach a wider audience, especially the younger ones. Another access consideration, I think, is about making these places safe and inclusive. More than just being zones for free expression for everyone, transforming them into safe and inclusive spaces for all allows them to better educate about and preserve culture and history. We have the resources to utilize heritage collections to preserve history and cultural identity. This empowers communities to be informed of their heritage and allows legislators and international organizations and agencies to use them for policy making. As catalysts for the attainment of the SDGs, various sectors should come together to build inclusive and interdisciplinary partnerships that use heritage collections for education, community engagement, and institutional resilience. Collections are not just dormant sources of history or cultural memory. They allow us to see the silver lining and are potential solution-oriented assets for our world's sustainable development goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, for the presentation. So we look forward to continue the conversation with you also in the Q&A session. So the next lightning talk by Paulin Regnard offers a field-based perspective on peace building and governance in crisis and post-crisis settings, focusing on what happens when heritage collections are missing or inaccessible. Drawing on practical experience in fragile environments, Paulin explores how the absence of institutional memory and shared cultural reference points can hinder efforts to rebuild civic trust, legitimacy, and social cohesion. So the talk invites a cross-sector dialogue on the typically overlooked role of collections in fostering inclusion, participation, and long-term recovery. Let's watch it.
My name is Paulin Regnard. My background is not in collections management. I come from the field of peace building, with nearly 2 decades spent in United Nations peacekeeping operations. So I will offer an outsider's perspective, perhaps a useful one, on what it means to work in places where collections have been displaced, destroyed, or damaged or neglected. What I hope to share is how peacebuilding practice might complement your work and why collections matter even when they are missing. But before we explore how collections relate to peace, perhaps it's important to recall what the United Nations mean by peace. It is not just about ending a conflict, it is about building just and resilient societies. This wider lens helps us see collections not as mere luxuries, but also as essential tools for social cohesion and civic trust. This aligns well with the SDG 16, promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. Moving on to a few examples. In those areas where I have worked, public cultural institutions, archives, libraries, museums, were either destroyed, inaccessible, or never built in the first place. So I would share a few examples from countries I served in. First, in Kosovo, 2/3 of public libraries were destroyed, along with countless volumes and rare manuscripts during the 1999 conflict. Then municipal archives were removed to Serbia, leaving local authorities without records and citizens without access to legal documents. Another example, in Haiti, chronic instability has undermined public record keeping for years. When the United Nations deployed its last peace operations in 2004, public archives were disorganized or missing. Today, the risks remain. One example, although the Haitian National Library survived the 2010 earthquake, it now faces threats from looting and insecurity. A third example, in South Sudan at independence in 2011, there were virtually no functioning public collections, with no institutional memory and urgent needs around livelihoods and security. Building archives or libraries was simply not a priority. Then, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, many colonial-era collections remain in Belgium. I met local officials who often lamented the absence of records that could have helped them resolve local disputes. As for the communities themselves, reconnecting with the dispersed heritage remains a challenge amid ongoing violence. So, after I have elaborated a little bit on these examples, one of the first things you ask when arriving in a crisis-affected area is, where are the records? What happened to them during the conflict, the unrest, or the latest disaster? Often the answer is silence. In such context, finding a surviving collections, even a modest school library, is almost a miracle, and that absence speaks volume. It reveals a profound gap, but also a potential bridge. In fragile and post-conflict settings, collections aren't a given, yet they matter for land rights, justice, education, identity. Communities may not always realize what's missing, but without access to their collective memory, they are at a loss. Therefore, what is at stake is more than cultural preservation. It is about empowerment and legitimacy. There are core peace-building principles that I would like to highlight. From a peace perspective, this means a threefold challenge. Restoring governance where collections have been vandalized, destroyed, disorganized, or removed. Secondly, supporting dialogue and reconciliation by enabling people to engage with their culture and history, and therefore helping them understand the roots of past and present tensions. Thirdly, representing community voices by offering spaces that could foster recognition and shared reflection. One specific example, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, there is a museum called L'Aztecs, which was founded in the city of Goma by a self-taught Congolese expert. This museum showcases the country's underground wealth in the conflict-affected region. This private museum reminds the public that collections can emerge from private initiative and contribute to knowledge, memory, and awareness among concerned citizens. Let me offer a few insights from peacebuilding practice that might resonate with the heritage community, and in particular, collections manager. First, trust building. While peace builders strive to create spaces for dialogue, collections can become platforms for shared memory and mutual recognition. If grounded and well managed, collections can preserve threads of lived experiences that might otherwise vanish. For instance, a collection of wartime records can help communities document harms and resolve disputes. Secondly, democratic governance. Archives and heritage institutions aren't just cultural assets. They are also civic. For instance, restoring a municipal archive or a public library can be part of re-establishing public services and rebuilding trust in the government. Such efforts matter in the post-conflict stabilization period. Thirdly, inclusion and access. In places marked by displacement of people or deep inequalities, peace workers engage with local communities, in particular marginalized or underrepresented social groups. Collections-based initiatives can do the same through mobile exhibitions and community museums, for instance, which make cultural assets visible and shared by all. Fourthly, risk mitigation. Peacebuilding and conflict resolution specialists routinely use conflict analysis, stakeholder mapping, contingency planning, and risk assessments. These tools could be adapted to heritage contexts, especially where collections are at risk due to armed violence, political instability, natural disasters, or simply a lack of resources to protect them. To conclude, if we want collections to matter in crisis and conflict-affected settings, and also be relevant to sustainable development goals, we must first recognize the barriers, poverty, insecurity, damaged infrastructures, but we must also acknowledge the potential they hold. Collection managers, peace builders, educators, civic leaders, we may work in different domains, but we share common goals: inclusion, dignity, and healing. These goals are also at the heart of the 2030 Agenda, especially Sustainable Development Goal 16, which calls for peaceful societies, access to justice, and accountable institutions at all levels. ICROM's Our Collections Matter initiatives offer a unique opportunity to bridge those worlds, to bring heritage into post-crisis recovery and recovery into the heart of heritage work. By working across sectors, we can unlock the potential of collections not just as cultural resources, but also as important instruments for sustainable development and peace building. Thank you.
Thanks, Paulin, for the presentation. And now we move to the last of the lightning talk today by Natalie McGuire, where she explores how anti-colonial curatorship within museums can contribute to peace building by challenging dominant narratives and fostering inclusive dialogue. Drawing on decolonial and community-centered approaches, the talk highlights how curational practice rooted in local knowledge and artistic collaboration can disrupt traditional hierarchies and promote shared authority. By embracing interdisciplinary partnerships and foregrounding historically marginalized perspectives, museums can become dynamic platforms for reconciliation, cultural dignity, and sustainable peace. Let's watch Natalie's presentation.
Good day, and sincere thanks to ICROM and the organizers for this opportunity to contribute to this vital conversation on how decolonization efforts in museums can foster peace. In Barbados, we often use the term anti-colonial alongside decolonial, a conscious effort to honor more than 400 years of resistance, struggle, and cultural survival, and to recognize that the dismantling of colonial legacies is ongoing, particularly in our context as a young republic. Peacebuilding through heritage work in Barbados often takes root in the arts. Artists have long been at the forefront of anti-colonial expression, whether through calypso, poetry, performance, and visual arts, and this continues today in how they engage with museums and sites of memory. At the Barbados Museum and Historical Society, where I serve as curator of social history and community engagement, decolonial approaches have been prioritized since the 1980s. One key way we foster peace is by opening our collections to creative reinterpretation, using artistic intervention as a form of dialogue and healing. This helps to challenge dominant narratives, produce inclusivity, and reclaim silenced voices. A recent example is our exhibition Lukka, Dismantling the Colonial Gaze. We invited 5 Black Barbadian women photographers to engage with our historic postcard collection, objects historically used to exoticize and dehumanize Caribbean people. The word Lukka, from our Bajan Creole, evokes Kamal Brathwaite's call for visibility of nation language as a counter to colonial erasure. Beyond the subject matter, Lukka also reimagined curatorial practice, Each artist was invited to act as co-curator, breaking down the traditional hierarchy of authority within the museum. This model of shared authorship created a space for dialogue, mutual respect, and the reassertion of agency, critical ingredients for peace building. One of the artists, Kia Redmond, remarked that her work in the show was about restoring dignity to the gaze, a powerful expression of how heritage can be a platform for healing and reconciliation. Another example is the Futures of the Eastern Caribbean Environment Project with the UNDP Accelerator Lab Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, where youth, artists, and climate activists produce creative multimedia visions of equitable and peaceful futures for the blue and green environment, including a co-created painting on the SDGs. The museum was the home to share these creations and a platform for a panel discussion to delve deeper into how art can be a tool for social change, including working towards peace. Looking ahead, we believe that innovative, intersectoral partnerships between museums, artists, educators, communities, and policymakers can unlock the full potential of heritage for peace and sustainable development. At the Barbados Museum and Historical Society, we're exploring museological methodologies that are developed out of Caribbean ways of knowing to establish best practices in museum work beyond the lens of the global north. We also continue to foster partnerships that blend augmented reality with public art or oral history with climate resilience, creating cross-disciplinary platforms for participation and empowerment. To conclude, while decolonization is an ongoing process, our experience shows that when museums act as inclusive spaces of dialogue, they can work towards becoming powerful agents of peace. Thank you.
Thanks, big thanks to Natalie and to all our speakers.